Daughter are in a dead tie for the top spot. Sarah Sigmundsdottir is just 1 point back, and then Turdur Erla Helgadottir, another Icelandic woman, sits in fifth. Kristen Holte, the only woman not from Iceland, in the top five. But Katrin Davidsdottir had a big day too, and she spoke with Amanda Krenz.
You knew that you would do well on the handstand walk. What about the snatch? Is that what you were hoping to put on the board?
Of course, yeah. I knew that I'd do well, but this is a very strong region. I know that most of us can go for a one rep around 185, so it's like you never know. I was just focused on myself and what I could do. I was trying to not focus on what they were putting on their bars, and 183 felt good today. I was confident with it and happy that I hit it.
Did you lift that earlier in the day? Is that why you felt confident?
I went for 175 in the warm-up area, and then it was all like based on this was my plan, and 173 felt fine, so I was confident going to 183.
Final day of competition tomorrow. What are you thinking?
I'm looking forward to it. I just want to keep doing what I'm doing. I want to stay consistent, and hopefully it'll pay off.
Good job out there.
Thank you.
Every regional we've seen so far has been extremely competitive. I don't know if we expected this one to be, because Annie Thorisdottir was 100%, but she's getting pushed going into the final day.
That's what makes it so exciting is, Davidsdottir is tied with a healthy, fit, ferocious Annie Thorisdottir. So Davidsdottir, the real deal, after missing qualification last year, spent it just training her butt off and has come back with an absolute vengeance. Currently tied for points with the two-time champ Annie. And looking forward to day 3, I mean, the only thing which has really been a stumbling block for athletes has been those strict deficit handstand push-ups. Now, we didn't get to see Katrine at the games last year at push-pull, which would have been a great example. So we look back to regionals last year in event 4, where we had strict handstand push-ups, and she took 3rd on that event. So I think it looks good for Katrine to go back to the games.
Meanwhile, Sarah Sigmundsdottir sits there in 3rd place, and I know you've been anticipating for a while seeing what she could do against the elite competition in that region, and she's not disappointing.
She hasn't disappointed one bit. She sits in 3rd place, but really she's only 1 point back. That's basically a 3-way tie at the top once again. You look at her finishes, a 2nd, a 4th, a 2nd in the big chipper, where she actually finished that. Then she had her worst finish as 9th in the handstand walk. But if you look at her handstand performance last year at regionals, that's a 23 place improvement. She finished 32nd in the handstand event last year, so that's a great improvement across the board. I really expect that to continue, kind of similar to what Pat said. Kind of curious how she's going to do in the strict handstand push-ups, especially because she finished outside the top 10 last year. But I think she'll continue this trend of drastic improvement, and she's 89 points ahead of 6th, so she's pretty solid.
The European women on a global scale, when you compare them with the other regionals, are pretty dominant right now. In the top 10s in the first 5 events of all the regionals, the Meridian women account for 14 of those top 10 finishes. That's 28%. The average in the other regionals is 12.5, so that just shows you how dominant that those European women have been, and we still have 2 events to go there. Let's head over to the men's side, where, speaking of dominant, Joona Koski came out of the gates hot, won the first 3 events, and he sits solidly in first place. Bjorgvin Carl Gudmundsson is good there in 2nd, but then it's close behind them. Lucas Hogberg just 10 points up on Philip Yang Fisker. Then Phil Hesketh is still alive, but he will need some help to crack that top 5. But Stephen Fawcett gets himself into contention here on day 2.
Yeah, and he deserves a whole lot of credit. He was actually the #1 ranked guy out at the Open. He won Europe in the Open this year, and he was 7th last year at regionals, so we're seeing a pretty marked improvement from him. His finishes look like an 11th, 5th, 5th, 3rd, and a 13th. If your worst event finish is 13th across the entire weekend, that's exactly the type of formula and performance you'll need to get to the CrossFit Games. And if he does, he could be the first Brit on the men's side to qualify, so that's a huge improvement for him. That's a huge accomplishment for him as well.
So while there's a new name in the top 5, a familiar name, a Games veteran is on the outside looking in, and that's Fredrik Agidius.
In troubled waters after 2 days of competition, 2 times Games athlete, Agidius is a beast that, quite frankly, I thought we'd see him sitting in the top 5 right now. He was in 4th at the end of day 1, and on day 2, that moving day, it didn't go well for him. After a 4th place on event number 3, he had his 2 worst finishes, a 26th and a tie for 23rd in the snatch, dropped him all the way to 10th, which is currently 62 points out of a qualifying spot. And once again, if the sticky point is those strict handstand push-ups, look back to last year, and he was 5th on that event, so not bad, but he needs a huge event 6 and 7 tomorrow.
Yeah, finally, the team competition over in the Meridian region. and it's CrossFit Yas who have been dominant so far. They sit solidly in first place, pretty much entrenched at the top spot of the leaderboard. Behind them, CrossFit Reykjavik Virtuosity. They're 6 points up on CrossFit Solid. CrossFit Turicum and CrossFit Fabrica now into the top 5, but just barely. They lead Team Butcher's Lab by just 3 points. Meanwhile, in the West Regional, that is still going right now. The women are getting set for events 4 and 5. Leaderboard there after 3 events has Emily Abbott atop it. She has a wide lead on Alex Parker, 36 points up on there. 18 points separate 5th from 9th, so anything can still happen over these final 4 events out west. But it was Alex Parker who had a big performance in event 3. She wins that event and now sits in 2nd place.
Alex, so I got chills as the crowd was building to a crescendo there on the end of the box jumps. Did that motivate you to finish that workout?
Oh yeah, the key with those box jumps is just don't stop moving, because you're never going to fail when you don't really need to pace them, and to finish that you have to go fast, so the crowd definitely helped.
So now that is event number 3 in the books. The first 2 won by Emily Abbott. You were 2nd place going in, so this is going to set you up well as we head toward this afternoon, events 4 and 5. How did they set up for you?
I definitely needed to do well in the first 3 events, because 1-rep maxes are not my strength. So I needed to have as many points as I could coming into it and try to hang on to that some position at the top.
Well, Brandon, you said it. 10 women to finish event number 3. Number 10, Alex Parker.
Thanks, Mike. Alex Parker did a great job on day 2. She has 2 top 3 finishes and now looks like she's really setting herself up nicely for this final day.
Yeah, and what's really key for her is that event win in number 3 and actually finishing those 50s, because last year she finished 3rd in Canada West, just 2 points shy of going to the games. She missed out on that final event. And for her, her biggest worry is possibly that snatch. You heard her say that. Last year at regionals, she was 21st in that event. She only hit 125 pounds. But, maybe having an event victory here and there with a 57-point cushion over 6 could give her just enough to hold on to one of these top 5 spots after day number 2.
Meanwhile, a Games veteran is on the outside looking in, Reagan Huckabee, but she has a deficit that she can easily make up here over these 2 events.
I think so. I think by the end of the day, so currently she's sitting in 7th place, but that might change a lot with events 4 and 5 still remaining, because we've got a handstand walk and a snatch coming up, and historically, looking back last year at regionals, Reagan did pretty well on these. She snatched 170 pounds, which is a solid lift, and then she was in a tie for 6th on the handstand walk, which last year you couldn't come down. It was over after that, so with her being able to kick down and kick up, I think she can make up some more ground today.
The men have just finished up event 3 in the West, and Brent Fikowski won it. They finished event 3. So Brent Fikowski is there. He's in first place with 280 points. Lucas Parker now sits in 2nd. Tyson Takasaki is 3rd. Cole Sager is 4th. And Joe Scally now sits in 5th, but he's only 3 points up on Mitch Barnard. Let's look at the men's side of things. And Brent Fikowski is a guy that you thought would do very well in event 3.
Yeah, earlier in one of our other shows, I called that he would finish this big chipper, and he absolutely did. He knocked it out of the park. And it's not surprising given the fact that he was one of the few men to actually finish the 50s chipper last year and actually finish with the event record. He had a 2nd in the snatch and handstand walks last year, so being able to move up into 1st, heading towards these last 2 events, is really a good spot for him. And I think he's trying to make up for the fact, similar to Alex Parker last year, missed out on the games by 1 spot, so it looks like he's set himself up nicely.
And Tyson Takasaki moved up the leaderboard here with event 3. He was in 5th place, now sits solidly in 3rd.
Just where he needs to be. So Takasaki is a beast. This guy is a 2-times games veteran, did exactly what he needed to do on event number 3. And once again, I think the handstand walk and the snatch actually play very well for him. He's a strong guy. Last year he snatched 280 pounds. Incredible. And then he was a tie for 13th on the handstand walk. But again, you couldn't kick down, so slightly different. He can end day 2 in solid position.
Let's head to the team competition now out west. They wrapped things up earlier today, and it's Verdant Green that grabbed the lead from CrossFit Fort Vancouver. Verdant Green with a 1st place in event 4 and then a 6th in event 5. Meanwhile, CrossFit Fort Vancouver finished 12th and 10th in those events, and that's why they are now 3 points back. CrossFit Marysville only 7 points off the pace. Lane 5 Athletics and Cascade CrossFit rounding out the top 5, but Cascade CrossFit is going to have a fight on their hands on Sunday as Team Tirana is sitting there in 8th. Just 7 points separate 5th from 8th there on the team leaderboard. in the West. Back out now to the Central region, the one you have been watching, and the big story there is Julie Foucher. She injured her Achilles tendon on her right leg on event number 3. They think it is partially torn. She's going to have to get that confirmed when she visits with a doctor when she returns home. But she was extremely emotional after the injury happened. She says she knows she's probably done, but she still wants to continue.
I mean, I kind of want to just do as much as I can just for fun. Sorry. Just because, like, I know it's my last time I'm going to be out there. So I want to just do as much as I can. But I don't think the snatch is going to happen. I don't think the cleans are going to happen. So we'll just see what I can do. This is my last season. Anyways, it's not really how I wanted it to go, how I wanted to end it, but I don't really have a choice, and you can't just like keep going just because you had, something happen. I gave it my all. I couldn't really change anything, and this is just how it's going to end, I guess.
And that's hard to watch. And Julie came out after that event and in a boot and still did events 4 and 5. And I mean, to me, that's one of the best moments we've seen all regionals long.
And Julie needs to realize, too, I mean, obviously these athletes sacrifice incredible things, pour their hearts into what they're doing, and for her not to have it end how she had envisioned it for so long, I'm sure it's heartbreaking for her, but she needs to realize we still love her all the same, and she still will be one of the most dominant female athletes ever in CrossFit, given what she's done at the Games.
Right. And I think it was still nice to at least see her go out for that handstand walk. And I think for her, she kind of did that for herself, really to kind of, even if this is the end of her competition career, to end it on her terms and not necessarily by the terms dictated by a freak injury like this.
Yeah, and I'm still in denial. I still think that there's a chance that this could
exactly.
happen.
Oh, man.
And for those of you that are in my camp, if Julie Foucher does decide to stay in, this is what she's probably going to need to do in order to qualify. She currently sits in 4th place. She'll need to average 11 place finishes on the final 2 events to keep herself in the top 5, but as Tommy said earlier, if this is a partially torn Achilles, it's not going to really matter because it's very doubtful that she'll be able to even compete in the CrossFit Games if she were to qualify. Let's look now at the leaderboard where Julie Foucher spent most of the time atop of it, but now a new name sits in number 1. That's 19-year-old Brooke Wells, who has an 18-point lead over Elizabeth Akinwale. Wells of the 4th and the 3rd in events 4 and 5 to put herself on top. Couple Games veterans on the outside looking in of the top 5. Lindy Barber and Sheila Barden, though, are within striking distance. It's going to be closer to them. Stacy Tovar is up there as well. So we'll, obviously I have different standings than the ones we're looking at, but Wills is the leader, followed by Akinwale, Nicole Holcomb. Julie Foucher sits in 3rd. So we'll get those corrected and updated to you as soon as we can. But let's talk Brooke Wells, 19 years old. Very impressive debut for her.
I am absolutely blown away by Brooke Wells. You said that she's 19 years old, but she's acting like a veteran, this being her first time at the regionals. And you look at her finishes, outside of a hiccup in Tommy V where she took 26, she's got a 1st, a 4th, and a 3rd. And just to kind of standings aside, she finished the handstand walk in 1:48, and then she snatched 186 pounds. At 19 years old, I really think we're kind of seeing a star in this sport kind of be born with how she's performed so far in the Central.
What's up with these girls that are younger than Lauren Fisher? We had Maddie Myers the other weekend. Now we got Wells. It's getting a little out of control.
Meanwhile, Elizabeth Akinwale is moving the right way. She started in 12th. Events 4 and 5 happened. Now she sits in 2nd.
From somebody that's a full-blown rookie to a no-kidding veteran, Akinwale has been to the Games 4 times and is showing why with the performance that she's having at regionals thus far. I mean, after event number 3, she was in 12th. Okay, that's nice. Guess what? The day wasn't over. Allow her to walk on her hands, allow her to throw some monster weight overhead, and all of a sudden that 12th disappears and she's sitting in 2nd place in the region with a couple events left, doing fantastic to make her way back to the Games. Keep your eye on her, though, on event number 6, the strict handstand push-ups. You know, going back to the games last year where we had a strict deficit, so it was a great representation of that. She took 38th place at the game, so that's going to be really tough for her.
Yeah, once again, your top 5 in the Central: Brooke Wells in first, Elizabeth Akinwale in second, Nicole Holcomb is in third, Julie Foucher currently in 4th place, Stacy Tovar occupies 5th. She is only 20 points up on Lindy Barber and 22 points up on Sheila Barden, so 2 games veterans trying to chase down that 5th and final spot. Heading into the final day, if you have a lead of 20 points or more over that 5th spot, your odds are pretty good that you're going to get to the games. 28 athletes in these regionals were up 20 or more points on 5th place. 27 qualified for the games. The chances, though, go down after that, up 1 to 19 points. 8 out of 11 athletes made it to the games. If you're in 5th, hanging on, you got about less than a 50% chance of going. So that's going to be a fight over this final day for these 3 regionals. And finally, if you're down 20 plus, you're going to have a bad time.
Real bad time.
Central men's leaderboard, we have the updated standings there now after 5 events, and Jacob Hefner sits in first place still as the Central men continue to run this thing. Scott Panchik has moved up to second. Sam Dancer now sits in 3rd place, followed by Alex Anderson and Graham Holmberg with a 23-point lead over Duke Burke. Sam Dancer came in as, I think, somewhat of an anomaly. We knew that this guy was strong. He could throw around a lot of weight, but he has made a believer out of a lot of people.
When I'm right, I'll be the first one to tell you that I'm right. and I was totally wrong on this one, beyond a shadow of a doubt. I thought it was great that Sam went. He's, a super nice guy, incredibly strong. He walks around with a 650-pound deadlift, but I was like, once you get out there with the likes of Panchik and everyone else, we're just not going to see him or cover him because he's going to get his butt kicked by everyone else. Well, day 2 of competition comes to a close, and he's just not clinging on to 5th. He is in 3rd place. He's doing fantastic, and I was so impressed with him. The lungs that he showed on event number 3, he took 6 on that miserable chipper. He can walk on his hands. Not his best event, took 33, but then out with a 275 snatch. Man, if this guy has strict handstand push-ups at a deficit, I'll see him at the games as an individual, and I can't wait to watch him.
Scott Panchik has improved his standings, but if anyone had told us that he would be in 2nd place heading into the final day, would we have believed them?
Yeah, probably not, but mainly because I think we kind of got jaded with the competition between Scott and Rich these last few years. They're kind of pushing each other along and really kind of elevated each other to kind of heights unseen in terms of this regional competition. But you know what? He had 2 strong finishes. He was 4th in the handstand, 3rd in the snatch, 275. And after seeing him perform like that, it was kind of one of those, okay, that's more like it. That's what we're used to seeing out of Scott. It moves him up to 2nd place. He's still within striking distance to maybe make a push on day number 3 to take that top spot from Jacob Hefner. But really what's key is he's securely in 2nd. He's had some strong finishes to build off to close day 2. And I think we're going to see an even better version of him on day 3.
Dancer is coming for him, regardless of what you say.
Oh, now you're on the bandwagon.
Yeah, he's driving the bandwagon now.
That's right.
On the team competition, we have a change at the top of the leaderboard here on day number 2. Team Rollins Quad City CrossFit came in the top spot, but now it's CrossFit 417 in the lead with 453 points. CrossFit Maximus 4 points back of Team Rollins, and then CrossFit Mayhem Freedom with 405 trying to hang on to one of those 2 final spots as CrossFit Kilo currently sits in 5th. But CrossFit Mayhem Freedom, Rich Froning's team, they had a rough start to the day in event 3.
This was all the hype we were talking about, right? Ute and NorCal and now Mayhem. Now, okay, there's still 1 day of competition left, but I haven't seen any of these event records. I mean, if we want to talk about there's super clash happening at the games, well, I hope they even get there. I mean, they're sitting in 4th. It's not a sure thing. Day 2 was rough for them, and event number 3, which there were rumors around the campfire of potentially this being their breakout event, that they were going to show everybody what they were capable of. I mean, it was a 7th, so that really didn't go how they wanted it to.
And we saw their female athlete just now struggling with those wall balls while James Hobart, a games athlete in his own right, was standing there waiting. He waited about 1:15. It cost him 5 spots on the leaderboard, and they were actually on pace to beat NorCal's record. It still would have been 2nd in the event, but you could tell that Rich wasn't pleased with that, and really it's just not the type of performance that he's used to. So we're kind of seeing a little bit of,
and he can't help, right? He's got all that fitness in the silence going, I can't, damn.
They're still in 4th, though. They can still go to the games.
Day 2 is in the books at the Central Regional. 1 day remains, 2 events left for the men, the women, and the teams. We'll have it all live for you tomorrow starting at 9 a.m.